Welcome back to Person of Interest. My next guest that I speak with is Patrick Terry, who is the founder of Austin's classic burger stand, P. Terry's. I sat down at his corporate office and talked with Patrick about his early inspirations for the restaurant with Mack Eplen's in Abilene, Texas, his early struggles with the restaurant, and now their current expansion throughout Texas. They're going to be expanding to San Antonio and Houston in the next few years. I had a great conversation with him. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. When did you first think, hey, I want to start a fast food restaurant?
Long time ago. I've always wanted to not only have a fast food restaurant, I wanted to sell hamburgers. You know, so much of it I don't even remember, but my friends tell me when we opened almost 16 years ago, people would call me or come by and say, well, finally you did it. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you know, you've been talking to me about this for years. I've always liked the restaurant business. I grew up in West Texas. I just like the contact with people on a daily basis. And I love hamburgers. I think that the idea of hamburger fries and a milkshake is just so Americana. And so there's something about it that I just find very, very comforting. So the idea has been around in my head for a really long time.
From doing a little research, Mack Eplen.
The Drivateria is what it was called, and that's where you got burgers and fries. He was obsessed with quality. He made everything from scratch. He made his hamburger buns from scratch. You know, he didn't have to do that. He could have bought buns from Mrs. Baird's, and nobody would have said anything. But it mattered to him. And years later, when I had P. Terry's for a couple of years, a friend of mine came from Abilene, and he looked at the menu and he said, my God, that's the same font as Mack Eplen. I didn't design the menu. A local artist did. And I wanted to go back to the time, frankly, before Kennedy died, the Kennedy assassination in '63, when we were just a different country. There was an innocence about us. I think it was lost after that. And I wanted to go back to that time. And Mack Eplen's represented it to me. I've got the same font, but even more so, I realized I had that same commissary. And I was making, you know, our sauces, and we were doing our own banana bread, baking our own cookies. I was hell-bent on quality. And it didn't matter to me, and it never has, what the price on our menu is. If you're in the restaurant business and you say, well, I'm making my own veggie burger, very few people do that. And I'm using cremini mushrooms, and we're cooking them down in a cream, literally, and then we're adding fresh parsley and brown rice and black beans. I bet I can get $6 or $8 or whatever. I've never looked at it that way. Even with our all-natural beef that's black Angus, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, vegetarian fed, I never said, wow, we're serving something that's special, therefore I can get X. What I said was, I want to make this menu affordable for damn near everyone. And at the same time, I want to serve a quality product. If that means our margins are tighter and our profit is less, so be it. I'm serving an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie that is baked in our commissary, and it's large by cookie standards. What I said was, I want to sell a cookie that sells for $1. And the fact that it's an all butter recipe and costs me more doesn't matter to me, because I'm not going to put anything in it but butter, even though that costs me more. I'm going to serve the exact cookie I want at the price I want and pray, because Connor, that's what it amounts to, that we sell enough of them that justifies us staying in business. All of that goes backward into the menu and what we created, and frankly, the prices that we charged.
I had a cookie for breakfast this morning, so yeah. I'm not sure if this is right, but did Mack Eplen's have pink cookies? And
yeah,
did that inspire the oatmeal cookie?
So they had a pink cookie, and I actually tried to recreate it, and it was the thing. You know, it was kind of like a sand dollar cookie. You know, this kind of a salty pecan cookie with a dab of pink frosting on top of it. And 100,000 people in town, and everybody knows what a pink cookie is. It was great. It was great.
Mack Eplen's had an impression on you, clearly. Do you think within the community there, it was known that they're at the top in terms of quality?
Yeah, that was the great thing, and that's the one that was probably the biggest takeaway for me, is that people recognized it. It didn't matter if they had worked all day in the oil fields or they had been the president of the bank. It didn't matter where they came from or what their job was or how big their house was or what their car drove. We all appreciated what he was doing, and we all went to his restaurants as a result.
It's interesting you bring up JFK. I hadn't thought of that when researching you and how it changed America in a way. How do you think that impacted food service or restaurant service in a way?
Well, I think it affected all of us in a way, and I don't want to get too deep in all of this, but I think there is a profound impact on, how we treat each other and where we went after Kennedy died. Yeah, I'm not sure it affected restaurants as much as it just affected all of society, at least in my opinion.
You worked at Tracy Locke?
Yeah, I was in advertising.
Was all of the roles leading up to founding P. Terry's in anticipation of someday I'm going to start a restaurant?
I don't think it was necessarily to start a restaurant, but it was to be out on my own. I was always just meant to do my own thing. And I was a terrible account executive. They were very kind to me not to show me the door. I really wasn't very good at it. And probably a lot of that was that I always had my eye on something else and was thinking, when can I break away and do my own thing?
And that was in Dallas?
That was in Dallas, yeah. I graduated from University of Texas here in Austin, December of 1980, and took the job in Tracy Locke, which is a really hard job to get. It was a tight market, and I had 16 interviews over the course of 4 weeks, and so it was a big deal when I got it. A year later, into the job, I actually opened up a pizza restaurant on the side called Capisto's. It was open in the evenings. It was a take and bake pizza concept. I had a kid open it at 3 p.m. and then I left work around 5 or 5:30 and drove straight to my pizza restaurant and worked there all night. And then I would work all day Saturday and all day Sunday at the pizza restaurant. And the only person at the time that knew I was doing it was my secretary. One day I went up to her and I said, I've got this incredible pain in my back. I was like 23, 24, going on 12 from a maturity standpoint. And I said, I got this pain. I don't know what this is. And she said, it's called stress. And she said, tell me how many hours you work a week. Ran some numbers in my head and I said, 80. And she said, it's called stress. Not very many people work 80 hours a week. And that's what I was doing at the time, because I was trying to juggle, my job in advertising and then my little pizza restaurant. Pretty crazy.
How long was the pizza restaurant open, by the way?
I had it for 3 years and I sold it. Not for a lot, but at least I got out from underneath it. It was a great experience for me. I was not prepared for it. I made a ton of mistakes. I learned a lot. I was lucky to get out with my life. Dallas is a gunfight. Every day in Dallas is a gunfight. It is incredibly competitive town. People don't wear gloves. I mean, it's bare knuckles. First thing I learned is I signed a lease. I remember saying to them, I may be a couple of days late with my rent. And the woman in charge of the shopping center said, that's fine. We'll just padlock your door until you pay. And the other thing I learned was I didn't know enough to have a no compete in the shopping center. I think at one point there were 4 other places selling pizza in the same damn shopping center. I mean, holy crap. and nobody gave a damn. It's like, the strong survive, the weak lose, So I learned at a very early age, what was out there.
Was pizza easier to get into because you do burgers now, but you started pizza?
Yeah, well, what happened was that I met a guy who was trying to sell me a franchise for a similar concept. And my first thought was, well, that doesn't sound that complicated. I don't know why I'm paying you. I can design I can get a guy to design a logo, and I can come up with the name, and I can make, and of course I didn't know how to do any of it. I'm not sure it was any easier. It's certainly different, but I find the pizza industry, the pizza segment, fascinating. But I love the pizza business. I love pizza. I can't eat it because I don't know when to stop.
So heading out of Dallas back to Austin, and P. Terry's was founded in 2005?
2000, yeah, it'll be July of 2005.
When did you go from, okay, I'm going to start this burger stand, to it actually opening on that first day?
I have a really wonderful friend, an attorney here in town. His name is John Heel. He was one of those people that had listened to me talk about burgers and everything. 5 years earlier, in 2000, the location had become available. It was originally a shortstop burger stand. Schlotsky's got it before I could, and they never did anything with it. It sat there for 5 years, literally vacant for 5 years. They paid their rent every month. I was heartbroken because I had gone to that shortstop and wanted my burger place to be there if and when that place ever went out of business. I was hell-bent that was going to be the first location. Looking back, I can't remember why, but if I didn't get that location, I wasn't going to do it. I mean, I was so sure that was the right first location. So 5 years go by, and Schlotsky's goes into bankruptcy, and the owner of the property, who also lives in West Texas, had gone to federal court in San Antonio to get the property back. It looked terrible. Everything was overgrown. There were people actually living in the building, unimaginable in today's Austin. But all the dead plants were all sitting there for 5 years. I mean, it was an unbelievable eyesore. My friend John called me. He said, that spot is opened up. I jumped. I contacted the woman that owned the property. She said, what are you going to do? And what's your experience? Let me see a business plan. She was very serious about this because she was embarrassed for the last 5 years. She didn't care about the rent being paid. She didn't want to be embarrassed when she came into town and saw it. She wanted it to look nice. I had to do all this, and finally she said, well, what's it going to look like? And so I had an artist do a rendering, and I FedExed it to her. And by then, word had gotten out, and everybody wanted the property. There were like 9 other people. I think Starbucks was interested. Quiznos was interested. It was for good reason. Overnighted her the drawing, and I'm walking into Chewy's. It's about 8 o'clock at night. I remember it was dark, and the phone rang, and I recognized the area code. Is this really what it's going to look like? And I said, it is. And she said, okay, well then I'll let you have it. I'm forever grateful to her for giving me the green light. And so the minute that happened, we started working on it.
Are there 2 or 3 things that stand out when you first start and you realize you're probably missing a lot of things because you're new to the restaurant business that you go, oh my God, I can't believe we didn't have this thing?
Well, what happened was I didn't realize how hard it was to make French fries, fresh cut potatoes, which is why nobody does it. And the people who do it, like In-N-Out and Hop Dottie, they use a different potato called a Kennebuck. A Kennebuck is kind of a desert potato. It's actually meant for potato chips, and it's grown year-round. Different states, have different schedules, and you can get the Kennebuck all year round. I find that it lacks flavor. I wanted an Idaho potato. It's called a Burbank russet potato. It's a specific potato, and it's really, the big guys use it, but they cook it and freeze it. That's why everybody uses frozen French fries, because fresh cut Idaho fries are really hard to do. And I didn't realize how hard it was. And so we threw away hundreds of pounds of potatoes as we were trying to figure it all out. And meanwhile, we're open, and it was a mess. And that was the one thing that stands out. There were little things, like I would say to the grocer, oh, I need pickles. And he would send me pickles. And one day, another good friend of mine said to me, what kind of pickles do you use? And I said, hell, I don't know. I just use pickles. I mean, whatever they sent me. And he delicately said to me, people who like pickles really like pickles. And what he was telling me was, you serve a crappy pickle. And so, my job has always been to be this filter of all the ideas that I get. No, we're not doing fresh sliced avocado on a burger. I can give you 20 reasons why we're not. Or, yes, that's a good idea. Let me find a way to implement it. I kind of am that guy. Certainly was until the last couple of years. And so I immediately said, okay. I called the grocer, and all of a sudden we were literally having a pickle test with 20 different pickles. And I realized we do serve a crappy pickle. So I immediately moved to a kosher, fresh pickle that has to be refrigerated. Those are the things that we were tweaking as we were going. But everything else, I had a pretty good idea what I wanted to do. We started with a frozen, ready-made veggie burger because we were just too small to make our own. We just had that little 527 square foot building, which is Lamar and Barton Springs. And we were trying to do everything in that. So we used a pre-made, which I was always embarrassed to serve, even though it's what everyone else sells, frankly, in their stores or most places. And so the minute we got big enough, we hired a chef and created our own veggie burger. Those are the three things that stand out: the fries, the pickles, and the veggie burger.
So when you first start, would it be fair to say that like up until, I don't know, a few months or a year, customers were getting variations of menu items because you're still trying to figure out?
It wasn't so much variations of menu items, it was variations of that menu item. We added breakfast, we added the cookie, and we didn't open with bacon. You didn't know what kind of french fry you were going to get in the beginning. And boy, there were so many sleepless nights. It took a couple of years to really figure out how to serve a consistent potato.
And just to clarify, a commissary is like a industrial kitchen?
That's exactly
okay.
what it is. And it's interesting because when you talk to other restaurant people or people in the business or investors in restaurants, everybody gets a little nervous when you bring up you have your own commissary, you have your own kitchen. But frankly, it's not as big a lift as people think. It's almost like owning just a second business. When we opened Barton Springs, there were 5 restaurants literally across the street: McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Taco Bell, Taco Cabana, and Wendy's. Today, there is only McDonald's. And I can tell you that 527 square foot building across the street closed those 4 restaurants. What I did, because it's my business, and the guy across the street, it's not his business. It is, but it isn't. I mean, he's a franchisee, and he's following the rules, and he thinks that there's these rules that he has to follow. I'm doing whatever I want, and what I mean by that is I can't tell you how many cookies I gave away. I can't tell you how many milkshakes I gave away. What I was trying to do was build up not only a friendship with my customers, but frankly, I wanted a love affair. I'm looking for you to love P. Terry's. If I can't get you to love P. Terry's, then at some point I'm going to lose you in this relationship. The minute you see something that you like as well or better, I lose you. If you love me, you don't pay any attention to the guy across the street. So I'm looking for you to love me, and I mean that literally. And so I do whatever I can for you to do that, for you to have that feeling to me. And how you start that is, wow, the guy gave me a cookie. Nobody gives me a cookie. Or the guy bought me a milkshake. Nobody buys me a milkshake when I go to a restaurant. I mean, when the last time you went to McDonald's and the guy said, hey, that's on me?
I used to work downtown. I could say for sure that the manager there, he's given me plenty of free cookies. So
that's great to hear. I'm serious. That makes my day. I'd rather have 100 friends than $100 because they're going to tell their friends, and now I got maybe 500 friends.
Do you think that sort of mentality is something that's unique to P. Terry's?
Oh, I hope so. I hope it's unique. I'm not trying to be different just to be different. I'm trying to be different to be better. To answer your question now, I don't think most people do this. I don't think there is. I think what happens is, and it's the one thing that we try and press every day at P. Terry's, is you got to remember these are our guests. We invited them to come here to see us, and that will tell you everything you need to know on how you treat people. I think most fast food restaurants are just in the business of, and there are exceptions, of course, are in the business of just getting the line through.
You've cited Eric Schlosser's book, investigative journalist. He had the 2001 book about the fast food industry. Are you fortunate that came out before you founded P. Terry's?
Oh, absolutely. I look back at it and, Fast Food Nation was the only book I read pertaining to the industry before I opened. It was a roadmap for me on what not to do because he was pretty critical of fast food in general. It made me want to do things differently. I wanted everything to be positive.
I saw near the end that it said In-N-Out, they treat their employees well, they offer benefits, and they refuse to franchise. Did you aspire to be like In-N-Out in a way?
You can't have respect for the industry without looking at In-N-Out. Their restaurants are spotless. They do pay well. I think that they are at a great level. And yeah, I respect the hell out of them. I really do. They've been around a long, long time. They've kept it private. They have total control over what they do. And so, yes, I have nothing but respect for them.
Does that mean you'll be expanding to California at some point?
It probably won't be in my lifetime. You know, in many respects, we are as Californian as In-N-Out in what we do. And in some respects, we might be even more Californian as far as the quality of the meat that we serve.
In terms of expansion in Texas, you don't want to be any more than a 4-hour drive outside of your commissary?
Commissary really is the heart and soul of the business. It's really what distinguishes us. The commissary is key. One of the reasons that we're going to San Antonio is just an hour and a half. And so that's something we can do daily. It's not a big deal. When we get to Houston, my guess is that we'll open up a second commissary for Houston. Not so much because it's so far away, but it's just going to put so much stress on the commissary that we have here that it won't make any sense to expand this one when we could just open up a second one.
It seems like if you could have a commissary or several commissaries, you could just expand more easily or maintain quality more easily. What's the challenge with maintaining consistency and quality with the commissary?
It's not so much that there's a challenge in the consistency and the quality, although that is never ignored. It's just a matter of how much sense it makes. There are clearly expenses in building and maintaining a commissary. What you want to do from an efficiency standpoint is build a good-sized commissary and use it for as many restaurants as you can. And acknowledge that some drives will be longer than others. So we would be just very careful on opening up the second one just from a business standpoint and the overhead costs.
In your research for P. Terry's, were there other restaurants that stood out to you where you said they're doing something great, they're doing something not so great, getting experience of what you want to do by actually going to these restaurants?
It's interesting. The only thing that really pops into my mind, other than In-N-Out, we'd been open for maybe 6 or 7 months, and I went to my neighborhood Starbucks, and the barista, when I walked in, recognized me and started making my order. I went back to the restaurant after I got my coffee, and I said, if Starbucks, which is this national brand, can train their people to recognize a customer and their order, why can't we? There's nothing more special than walking into a restaurant or a business and being recognized. The only thing more special than that is when they know what you're going to order and they tell you, are you having the usual? You feel like $1 million. This is your place. We had a young man that worked for us at the time, and he had this amazing memory. My God, what a gift. And he would see your car, and he damn well knew their names. Hey, Al, you going to have your hamburger with ketchup, mustard? You want the usual? And it was magic. It's very hard to do that on a day-to-day basis in a busy restaurant. But, man, if you just back up and say, oh, hey, it's great to see you again. I've had customers call me and say, so-and-so recognized I got my hair cut. I think that's so amazing. It's not like you can put that in a training manual. I mean, you can, but it becomes so less genuine if you just say, oh, and try and remember the customer's name and order or say hello to. If I have to tell you to be friendly, I probably hired the wrong person. It all starts at the top. If I'm an ass, literally a daily ass, I'm going to turn every employee that sticks around into an ass. Or the only people we hire are asses. Couldn't be more serious. There is nothing more important than the culture that's been established, and once that culture is the right culture and you're successful with that culture, there's nothing more sacred than holding on to that culture. And frankly, it's the hardest thing to hang on to as you grow. It's a hell of a lot easier to implement that culture with 30 people than 300 and 3,000. That's where it really, really gets tricky. And that's where most people lose their way.
I'm sure that's something you worry about with the expansion.
All day long. And, when we hired, 2 years ago, we hired a CEO. Todd Corver came out of Colorado. The main thing when I was interviewing him was, does he get our culture? Because what most people do is we all bring our shit with us. That's what we do. We all got our shit, and we all bring it with us. You're looking to see, what are you going to bring? Because you're about to run this company. And yeah, I'm in the office next door, but I'm not running this company anymore. You're running this company. That's why I hired you. If you bring in the wrong shit, it's going to permeate the business. And so the connection with Todd was almost immediate. He understood our business. He knew of our business. He respected our business. And he didn't have an ego that said, well, I got to come in and put my mark all over this. And the magic with Todd is he's not that guy. He recognizes it. We used to say, when I'd bring in a new guy to, run the restaurants, I would literally say, here's the key, don't F it up. It's running pretty good. I'm glad you're here, and I'm sure you can find things to make better, but it's running pretty good. Don't F it up. That's what we did.
Todd Korver, he's the CEO, correct? What is your role?
Well, they call me founder. I have a title. In the old days, nobody had titles. Now we have titles, and that's fine. It's necessary. It's gotten to be a pretty big company, and everyone needs to know what lane they're in. I'm kind of the grandfather in the, where the kids come and, I get to be the funny guy, the nice guy. I don't have to make hard decisions because they're not my kids. They're my grandkids. I do notice things that might slip through the cracks, or I answer a question as to why, somebody, may say, well, why do we do this? Why don't we do that? And I have the answer because I've been around since day one. And the answer is, well, we do it this way, and we've always done it this way. Doesn't mean it's the right way, but I'm just telling you, this is how we came to this conclusion. There's background that I think I provide. Todd and I get along great. I mean, he's the kind of guy you want to have a beer with. And so, about once a quarter, we go out to dinner and talk for 2 or 3 hours just about, where we are, what the future is, what's going on. Sometimes I might have some guidance. Sometimes I might learn something from him. But I really just stay out of the way. The success that we've had with this concept, the success that I've had running the concept, I really boiled down to that I'm very honest with myself on what I know and what I don't know, what I'm capable of doing and what I'm not capable of doing. And frankly, of admitting when I've made a mistake. I've been thinking about this a lot in the last couple of years. The fact that, I looked in the mirror a couple of years ago and said, well, if we're going to go outside of Austin, I don't know how to do that. I mean, maybe it's easy. Maybe it's not that big a deal, but maybe it's not. But I don't know because I've never done it. I had another friend say to me, I never want to learn something that somebody else has already learned. Why would I ever take this chance, risk this business by going to San Antonio when I really don't know how big a hill that is to climb? And so I said, I got to bring somebody else in. I'm not sure I'm the right guy to do this anymore. I have an ego because my name's on the cup. That cracks me up. So I have somewhat of an ego, but my ego doesn't extend beyond thinking that I can do everything. Having Todd come in and say to me, I said the other day, oh, what about doing something for Lent, a special burger just for Lent? And so, yeah, we tried that. That doesn't work. Nobody cares. Okay, great. So now we don't have to try it and not succeed because you've done this before and you know how this turns out. That's pretty valuable.
When you're first starting the restaurant and, knowing your limits and knowing when to ask questions,
right? Were
there people in the restaurant industry when you were starting who you reached out to?
No. And it's probably to my demise. I am hell-bent on doing it on my own, learning from my mistakes. I don't take advice very well. And it's not like I think all you people do this wrong and I'm going to do it right. I don't think that way. I just think I just need to do this myself. I didn't make friends in the industry. I don't go to conferences. I didn't go to meetings. I didn't join clubs. And I didn't know any other way to do it. I probably made it a lot harder on myself than I had to, but it was just the way I was going to do it.
Have any restaurant owners reached out to you for advice?
Yeah, they have, and it's a wonderful compliment. Again, it's kind of a fatherly role. And really all I can tell them is my story and tell them how I did it. I don't necessarily recommend it. There are a lot of businesses that start out in Austin, and what they say is, I want to be the P. Terry's of Austin in my category. It's a wonderful compliment. And so they reach out to me and we visit, and I just tell them the story.
Was there ever a time, I'm sure there was a time, where you were the closest to considering quitting?
Oh, God, yes. It's a great question. It's a great question because it's so true. The first couple of years, we were terrible. I just ran a terrible business. Probably because they didn't reach out. Probably because I wanted to do it all on my own. Probably because I wasn't qualified to do it. Maybe those things had something to do with it. God, the POS system went down all the time. We had a crappy system, and they were terrible at maintaining it, and we were doing things by hand, and I was firing people all the time because I wasn't hiring the right people, and I didn't know how to do it. There were dozens of times that if somebody had walked up and handed me a check to cover what I'd put in it, I probably would have walked away. It was really, really hard. My poor wife, we had just gotten married. She didn't sign up for this. She's trying to help out when she can, and it's stressful as hell, and my name is on the sign. I just want it to all go away. Oh, God, it was, plenty of times.
On the brighter side, when did you realize that, hey, maybe we should open another location?
Well, of course, as I'm going through all of these mental frustrations and physical impossibilities, I was looking for a second location. It's almost bipolar. Probably early into the second year, I started looking around. We ended up opening up the second location almost 4 years later. And thankfully, I never could find or connect with somebody to get a second location. And it turned out to be a blessing because we weren't ready to open up a second location until we actually did. The only thing I knew when I opened the first one was I wanted to open up another one. I didn't necessarily want to open up a third one or a fourth one or 20, but I wanted the challenge, the personal challenge of opening up at least 2 restaurants.
You had said that P. Terry's could not have survived in many other cities.
It's true. Austin was particularly South Austin, was so forgiving, so amazingly forgiving. And I think 2 things. One is they saw the uniqueness of the business. Nobody else was selling all natural beef. And so it was unique enough that it was worth going back. And the second thing is they saw how hard we were working, how hard we were trying. I think sometimes they just took pity and said, oh, well, they screwed it up, but we'll come back. Like I remember a guy, he had ordered all these milkshakes and the machine couldn't handle it all. And they were all it was coming out like water. And I was so flustered and I was trying to give him, and he said, calm down. We want you to succeed. Calm down. It's powerful when a total stranger, will tell you it's okay. We want you to succeed. We're rooting for you. And you don't even know the guy's name.
Clearly, Austin's growing. I went to college here, graduated 2018, and even then it was growing, but now it's really growing. And also with the pandemic, you see how mom and pop shops, little local shops are closing, and it gives you perspective on how vulnerable they are. Do you worry about this transition of big business kind of pushing out the smaller people?
Well, I do worry. I don't worry for me. We're big enough now that I think we survive. But the Patrick Terry of today will have a much harder chance of surviving in Austin than the Patrick Terry from 16 years ago. Not just the competition, but the cost of doing things, permitting and regulations that over the course of time have been imposed. It is very hard. I worry about that. I think what's happened is, I say that, Connor, and the truth is what people do now is they open up a mobile unit. And if they succeed in that, then they open up a brick and mortar. 15 years ago, those weren't even around. There was one, actually, and it was next to me. They were selling crepes. It was the only one in town. And I think that's the natural progression today is I'll open up on wheels, and if it works, hell, Franklin Barbecue started that way. I think that's how you get around it today.
Okay, I have a few quick-fire questions. What do you get when you go to P. Terry's?
I get a hamburger with ketchup, special sauce, lettuce, tomato, onions, and pickle. I don't get it with cheese because I want to make sure that the meat's been cooked at the right temperature and the cheese will cover up any mistakes, and I don't want to cover up any mistakes. I always get French fries, and I usually get an Arnold Palmer.
Do you find that you're critiquing it more than enjoying it sometimes?
I am. It's my job.
Item you wanted to add to the menu but didn't?
I talked earlier about it. I was thinking for Lent to do some kind of shrimp burger, for 40 days. I got talked out of it, and I'm fine with that.
One word to describe P. Terry's.
Well, I hope it's classic. I hope it's classic.
Favorite place to go besides P. Terry's to enjoy a burger?
Well, I'm going to be a total ass and just tell you right now I don't go to other places anymore to eat burgers. But I will tell you that when my wife and I were dating and before we opened up P. Terry's, every Saturday we would go to Shady Grove and sit at the bar and have a burger and fries. And I looked forward to it and I loved it, and I'm sorry they're gone.
Best and worst advice you've received?
It's probably one and the same. My dad used to say to me, easy does it, because I was always the guy that had 50 things going on, and he was right, and in a way, he was wrong. Is that okay? Is that an okay answer? And because it really, really was something that I heard my whole life. Easy does it, Patrick. Easy does it. And he was probably right, but he might have been wrong.
Say you were starting P. Terry's now, and you could talk to yourself, what would you tell yourself?
To be absolutely patient with your business. Don't look at this as I'm going to get rich. You look at your business as something much, much more personal than that. You're looking to build a foundation and a following. And if money gets in the way of that, then your decisions will be different. So when I handed out milkshakes and threw away all those pounds of potatoes, it didn't matter to me, the cost. I wasn't going to serve a bad product. I don't care how many cases of potatoes I had to go through and throw away and what my food costs were that month. Never even entered my mind. What I thought was, I will not serve somebody a bad French fry if I can help it. I will give people things to make them feel like they're special when they come here. The P&L be damned. In the end, this will work to my advantage. I'm living in the present, and right now that's how I want to live, and I'm not going to worry about anything else. Money and success will follow if that's how you run your business.
Awesome. Well, that's the last question I had. I'd just like to say P. Terry's has been a staple of my diet past 7 years, and I've always told my friends I was going to interview you someday. So,
well, thank you.
It's been a real treat. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It's been a treat for me, too. It's great to meet you.